Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hard Drive Studios, a show where we highlight creators and a wide range of media people from CrossFit and the sports industry. Today I'm joined by Carlos Bown, aka Bown Media on Instagram. Just like all of us, he started from zero and is now one of the most renowned American photographer in the CrossFit space, but also many other sports. Working on a regular basis with brands like Tier and HWPO, he's one of the first creators to inspire me to do what I do. We met in January 2023 at my first Wodapalooza, stayed good friends, and ever since then, he's always supported me in all my endeavors. So, Carlos, thank you so much for coming on the show and welcome to Hard Drive Studios.
Thank you. I feel honored about everything that you said. But yeah, thank you so much. And I do remember when we met, actually. We were sitting on those chairs at not Flagler, what's the other stage?
Tina
Tina
Hill.
Hills. Yeah, Tina Hill. And I remember there, and you mentioned something about my podcast. And yeah, I
Yeah.
do remember that moment.
Yeah, that was funny. Like, we were all bummed a little bit with access and just like waiting around between heats and everything. And,
Yep.
the funny thing is, I actually discovered you through your podcast first.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's cool. I
yeah.
do hear that a ton, especially from European people.
It's funny, right?
Um, yeah, well, actually, this past week or 2 weeks ago at Rogue, one guy was sitting next to me. He's like, "Oh, you're the YouTuber, right?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, that's not me." I thought he got confused with somebody else. He's like, "Huh?" And then he starts like checking his phone. He's like, "This you, right?" And he showed me my profile. I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, you have a YouTube." I'm like, "No, I don't." And he's like, and then he like checked the podcast, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Like
Yeah.
I didn't like put it together, like my podcast going on YouTube and then him seeing it like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like this podcast is just basically a conversation. It's not like an interview or anything. I just like to have a chat with friends and talk about our jobs and everything that goes with it. But for the people that don't know you, I think you might have done that on one podcast already. But if you don't mind talking a bit about your background and how did you start creating?
Yeah, so just to track it back, since I was a kid, I was born in Venezuela in South America, and since the age of like four, probably 4 or 5, I was playing a ton of golf. I picked up tennis too. By the time I was 13, my dad told me, "Hey, if you want to be really good at a sport, you have to pick one. You can just do, I was doing also soccer. I was doing everything, right? Tennis was probably the sport that I liked the most,
Okay.
but I would say I wasn't really good at it. And every time I'll play a golf tournament, I'll win it. And I had this like talent for golf. I started playing super early, and it was also another way to spend time with my dad. So I was thinking, I'm like, probably golf would be the best one. I'm pretty good at it, and I get to play with my dad every week. And like, sure. And then from there, it kind of I started getting better. Joined the national team at 15. I was one of the top ranked amateur players in the country, and I
Sick.
mean, travel all over the world, or I guess not all over the world, all over South America and United States, playing tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
representing Venezuela. And my goal was always to move to the United States to play college golf here, NCAA college golf. So when I was 17, I told my dad like, "Hey, I have no future here in Venezuela. I want to move to the States." I was lucky that both my parents supported me through my decision, and I moved to Orlando area. It's actually called Howe in the Hills, but nobody knows where that is. It's kind of close to Orlando, Claremont,
Mm-hmm.
and moved there. All I did was play golf tournaments, so coaches would watch me. I already had a few offers from the previous years, and I decided to sign with University of West Florida, where I spent 4 years playing NCAA college golf.
Okay.
Got a undergrad in business management. I got pretty burned out from college golf around my junior year. Just wasn't playing the way I was hoping. Just wasn't the right thing for me. Like all my hopes and expectations about playing professionally ended
Mm-hmm.
quickly. And at that time I didn't know what to do. I'm like, well, my whole life I've been surrounded by playing golf and being the best golfer I can be, and now like what's next? I don't know how to do anything else. It
Yeah.
was literally my whole life. So senior year of college, um, probably my junior year of college, I started on the TV. I started watching some of like the ESPN CrossFit game stuff, and I always thought it was really cool. I'm like, damn, this is dope. And then my senior year of college, I watched the 2015 documentary. I forgot what's called,
One of
but
the
it's
fittest.
yeah, one of the yeah. And I've talked to Hiver about this and Mars too. And I watched that documentary, and I thought it was the coolest thing that I've ever seen before. I'm like, dude, I need to try this. And I had a friend that will tell me all the time, like, hey, come join my CrossFit gym. Like, you're gonna love it. You like working out. At that point, I wasn't really that much into. I mean, I guess I was into working out, but it wasn't like
Just fitness.
nothing. Yeah, exactly, just fitness. And I called my friend. I'm like, hey, you've been telling me for over a year to go to the gym. I just watched this documentary. Let's do it. Day after I showed up to, I think it was probably, yeah, it was a Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. Showed up to the gym, scared. I'm like, dude, what am I doing here? And we did a workout called, oh gosh, I should probably know this.
Yeah,
I'll circle back to it,
yeah, yeah.
but it's one of the girls,
Yeah.
girls' name, 159 power cleans and ring dips, and immediately fell in love with it. Fell in love with the community, the coach. Um, After a month after that, I was like, dude, this is it. This is like my community, right? So that kind of gave me a new purpose of like, golf didn't work out, but I just found this new sport. Let's start training and see where it takes me, right? Like,
Yeah.
long story short, like it didn't take me too long when it comes to. Wait, somebody's calling me.
No.
When it comes to competing, obviously like RX competition stuff like that, it was super fun. But quickly, I was like, yeah, definitely like not something that I can do competing, but I still enjoy the community.
Yeah.
I love the sport, and quickly after that, I started my master's degree, and that was taking a ton of my time. I was working as a teacher assistant,
Oh.
business department, and I needed some like a little more of an income. I was paying $150 to go to the gym,
Mm.
not that much money, full time master's degree. So I was like, I talked to the owner and I was like, hey, I want to start coaching. I
Okay.
want to coach a few classes so I can start, like at least getting my membership paid and making a few dollars. So he's like, let's do it. He paid for my level one, which to this day I thought it
Wow.
was one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and quickly after that I started coaching. I was making $12 an hour at first, then I jumped to $15 an hour, but it was helping me get through master's degree and all that, and still doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
So to move up 2 years after that, I'm finishing my master's degree, and at that point I didn't know what to do. I'm like, well, I mean, another point of my life that I'm completely lost. I'm about to finish my master's degree in business management, but I don't know what to do. Like, I don't want to go to an office and just be there 8 to 5.
Yeah.
And at that point, I kind of started flirting with the fact of doing some sort of like creating my own like social media agency, because one of the things I was doing in the business department is I was helping the social media management class. I was a teacher assistant and digital marketing, so I learned a ton just by like grading papers and being in the class and all that,
Yeah.
from the teacher. Her name is Sherry Harnett, and I was like, I'm gonna give it a try. So right before I finished my master's degree, I started searching for some clients, started doing some social media management stuff, some restaurants in town, and that's when I noticed there was a market for content creation
Hmm.
that it will supplement my business
Yeah.
without like being like extra competitive. So there was a ton of like agencies in town, but nobody did content creation.
Yeah.
All they did was social media, and if the business wanted content creation like photography or something, they will have to outsource, and that's an extra cost.
Yeah.
So I was like, I mean, I can start taking some photos here and there. I was already playing with like an old Nikon a few
Oh.
years back, but it was never a thing that I thought I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I like photography. It's not something I do professionally, but I can learn, and maybe that will help my agency.
Yeah.
So bought a
Interesting.
Sony camera after research,
What was
and
it?
yeah, it was my first Sony camera was an A7 III, which is a really good camera.
Yeah.
I kind of went all in. I opened a credit card, which I would never tell somebody, hey, go open a credit card and buy this, but I have my goals in mind. I'm like, I'm gonna open this credit card as zero APR for a year,
Yeah.
and I know I'll pay it off. I just have to pay it off every month. It will help me as a, motivation of like, hey,
Yeah.
you gotta work, pay it off.
Exactly.
If this is what you want to do. So I went for it, and quickly I started taking photos of my gym. The owner is like, hey, how about you start also managing our social media, and you take photos at the gym and stuff like that. And quickly it became, well, I wouldn't say quickly, because at first I was kind of just doing it,
Hmm.
and then people started telling me like, oh wow, like I like your photos, and I'm like, sure, but never a thing. Then one of my friends hired me to take photos of him and his wife, and he paid me like $100, and I was like, dude, this is the greatest. What, like $100? I'm
Yeah.
coaching classes for 15. I just spent 30 minutes and he gave me $100. Like, I have
Exactly.
to get better at this. Started taking photos at the gym, and start falling in love with more like the process of like, hey, making, creating this sort of art out of people working out, right?
Yeah.
It's cool. CrossFit's always been a sport that matches well with photography. It's a very, I call it, attractive sport. It's people enjoy fitness, health, and they do really cool movements. So on photo and video, it attracts the audience very
Yeah.
well.
100%.
So, and I'm sorry I keep talking. I'm just, all these things
Dude,
come into my yeah.
that's what we're here for.
Yeah, so yeah, I started falling in love with it and start getting more and more clients. And that's when I realized like, hey, I might be into something here. Like, let's keep getting better.
Hmm.
Let's see where it takes you. At that point, I still never consider myself a photographer or videographer. When people ask me what do you do for work, I will say I own an agency, a marketing agency.
Yeah.
It was never like, oh, I'm a photographer.
Hmm.
In fact, I remember one of my mentors early on. I was talking to him, and he's like, "I've seen some of like your CrossFit stuff. Like, why don't you like lean into that market?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Nah, no way. Like, there's no money in that market. Like, I don't see anything happen there." At that point, my goals were like, I want to get better, get more clients, and start shooting weddings at some point.
Yeah.
Slowly start
Okay.
getting,
So weddings
yeah.
was like your first.
Yeah, I will say weddings was like my first, like where I started getting some more like clients and like more momentum on my business
I
was
mean,
start shooting weddings.
when you start videography or photography, it is a more conventional way of making really good money. So for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. And I noticed that will be a good way to supplement my agency. Just getting some gigs on like the weekends and photo shoots. And a lot of the stuff was like fake until you make it. I was telling, in Scotland, I was talking to Heber. I was telling him about like things that I did to get clients. Like one time I was taking some photos at one of the clients' restaurants, and one of the guy comes to me. He's like, "Hey, do you do drone? I own a roofing company." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." He's like, "Can you make videos?" I'm like, "Yep, absolutely. Like, I can do it." He's like, "Okay, how about we jump on a call and I tell you some projects I have going on." I'm like, "Sick." He called me the day after. He's like, "Hey, Thursday," which at that point was probably Monday. Can you drive to Panama City Beach? It's about 90 minutes from where I live, and take some drone videos of three of my properties. I'm like, done, perfect. At that point, I didn't own a drone, and I didn't know how to edit videos.
No way.
All the
Oh
videos
yeah.
I edited was with the GoPro app that it kind of makes it ready for you.
Oh
It's like
shit.
an AI thing that they just put clips together. Because I never did video, I just did it for like social media.
Yeah. So your
So I'm
first
like,
thing was photography, right?
yeah,
Okay.
pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, here and there, I'll click the record button and
Yeah.
take a few videos. But photography was the first thing.
Yeah.
So I pretty much had 3 days to get a drone and figure out how to edit a video. So I got a DJI Mini. Delivered, probably got there a day before. Kind of play with it outside the house. Good to go. And then I was telling Heber, from the time that I left my house to the shoot, I put a tutorial of how to use Final Cut Pro X.
No
So I watched
way.
90 minutes how to use it, shot everything that I had to shoot, and then on the way back, another 90 minutes of just tutorials of Final Cut Pro. Got the video done, sent it to the guy, and he's like, I love it. Let's keep doing more of this.
No
And I'm like,
way.
huh. So I've kind of gone like in my whole life, which is not something I recommend to everybody.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I have an opportunity and I know it's the right call and I really want to do it, I will do whatever it takes to get that opportunity. If it takes,
Hmm.
lying a little bit, saying that I know how to do it, but I know I can learn it,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
do it. And
If
because, yeah, what were you gonna say?
no, I was just say like if you trust in your ability to learn a skill pretty quickly and your motivation to do it, then if the why is strong as well, then just go. It's good to just go for it if you trust yourself to do it.
Absolutely, and I think this industry is also a lot of being willing to do things that are really uncomfortable, or things that are scary. That they at that point it could be something that you think you're not able to do, but that's kind of like what makes us who we are. Like we're creatives. We figure things out,
Yeah,
and I feel like we gotta jump on those opportunities. And like the moment that something like that presents in front of you, like just figure it out. Like that's kind of what makes the difference. Like if it takes me driving 10 hours and sleeping overnight in my car
yeah,
to shoot an athlete or a client I've been wanting to shoot for a while, like I'll do it.
yeah,
It'll be a no-brainer. I wouldn't be like, oh, I will have to like sleep in my car. Like it's fine. Like
yeah.
everybody goes through those moments the first few years.
Yeah, 100%. And even I'd say even to this day, like if now I'd get like an opportunity, like let's just say like a Red Bull would tell me like, hey, like can you come to Japan next week and like we'll pay for your plane, but then you have to shoot this and this, like, but we can't pay you much or whatever. I'll go. Like,
Absolutely.
sometimes you just gotta grab this opportunity, even though you're already like set up in your sphere and your industry and you've got your clients and everything. If there's something you really want to do, like, yeah, even still now, like I'm been talking to guys in different sports than CrossFit and telling them like, hey, I don't mind like coming and shadowing you for free. Like even now, you can always learn.
I agree, and I feel like we're never gonna be good enough for those passion projects. Like I mean, to this day, like I always say, people ask me like what's like a dream project for you. I always say like being in the like making some sort of documentary for my favorite band in the music industry. That's like number one thing. So if somebody were to give me a call tomorrow and they're like, hey, I have this opportunity for you, it's not gonna pay you what you charge, but it's
Dude,
this and that, like, are you willing to do it? I'll be like, yeah, where do you want me there right now? I'll pack my bags and do it.
exactly.
Because it's just like what fulfills me. And I feel like you're probably dealing through this now that you're starting to get more and more clients and starting to get busier. I feel like being in this industry, it's also very repetitive. You go through a lot of like the same process, and I always say it's very lonely, right? Like, yeah,
Can
you
be.
get to hang out with people during the events, but 98% of the time it's you by yourself, and nobody's keeping you accountable. Everything is on you, right? There's a lot of pressure on
Mhm.
you, and there's a lot of thoughts and things going through your head, and you don't have anybody to deal with. Unless, I mean, of course, if you have a significant other, you can talk to that person at night like, hey, I'm dealing through this. But
Yeah,
98% of the time it's very lonely.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's all true things. So going back a little bit to the history of things. So you had your marketing agency. You started taking pictures in your gym. You started doing some videos for that guy. What led you to CrossFit videography and it becoming something full time?
Yeah, so backtracking to that moment, when I started taking more photos and stuff, like, I started noticing that people enjoyed my photos. And this is a cool story. I don't know if I've told it on like a podcast before. I probably have, like, some sort of way. But
Yeah.
my friend CJ, he's the what is he? I don't know if he's one of the main guys of What Prep. I don't know if you know the brand What Prep.
I've heard of it, but
Yeah, it's Ben Sawolski. He's a CrossFit coach.
okay.
And in the 2019 CrossFit Games, he had a few Masters athletes
Okay.
competing. So my friend CJ, he lives in town, probably like 5 minutes away from me. We work out together. He called me. This is in 2019.
Yeah.
He's like, "Hey, what are you doing next week? I'm like, nothing. He's like, you're coming to a CrossFit Games with us. I'm like, no, I'm not. What do you mean? He's like, yeah, you're gonna take some photos for the water prep athletes. Do you want to? We'll pay for your travels and your expenses. I'm like, no. He's like, what do you mean? Don't you want to go to CrossFit Games? I'm like, yeah, but dude, I can barely use this camera. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not gonna go to CrossFit Games and take photos. And he's like, come on, dude. Like, we'll rent something for you if you need anything. Like, let's go. And I'm like, oh, this is a terrible idea. Like, in my whole head, I was like, this is not right. Like, I'm not. I
Qualified.
don't. I don't belong there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, they peer pressure me. I had like a week to learn a few things about how to take photos. We rented a lens, a 70 to 200. So we get there to Madison. I'm having my, I get my credentials, my bag, and I see all these photographers carrying these like huge lenses, like, the 400s and stuff. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't even want to take my camera out of the bag because I don't really know like how to use it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I remember first time I put the 70 to 200, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I started taking photos. Fun story. I didn't know how people got the photos vertically. I always thought they crop, and then when I get there, I see everybody going like this, like with the camera.
No way.
Yeah. So just as an example, so I grabbed my camera and I was like, oh, that's how people do it. And that was first time I learned how to do a vertical photo. It was at the CrossFit Games.
That's hilarious.
I always thought it was like a cropping pose, which still people do, but
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah. So dude, I had a mic that I didn't even know why I had a mic. One of the guys gave it to me. He said, "Hey, if you're recording videos, do it." So I had it. I had a mic plugged in that I never used. I kind of, figured it out. And by
But
the end of the week, a ton of people were like, "Dude, your photos were incredible. I didn't know you could take photos like that." In my head, I'm like,
um,
okay. Like, I didn't know if it was just friends hyping me up or
yeah.
there was actually something going on. And another funny story. I haven't told this one to anybody publicly because it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I would edit my photos on my phone. Like I'll transfer from my camera to my phone. And day one, I met a guy. He was shooting for Reebok, and he was telling me like, "Hey, we're talking," and I asked him like, "Where do you edit your photos?" He said Lightroom. So I'm like, Lightroom. I remember that word. I'm gonna download it when I get back home.
Yeah.
During the week, everybody that asked me like, "Oh, where are you editing your photos? You put them out quick." I will say Lightroom, but I didn't have Lightroom. I remember the guy earlier saying that he used Lightroom, so I just said Lightroom, and then when I got home, I downloaded Lightroom.
It's really the definition of fake it until you make it.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's how I did it.
Yeah, I edited on room light.
Yeah, room light. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I probably said a few
Oh
things
shit,
like
that's
that.
hilarious. I'm happy that I'm getting to hear these stories on here. That's perfect.
Yeah, I feel
Okay.
like I'm in a point in my career that I don't care about
I mean, yeah, that
saying all these things that got me started because it's just
100%.
I feel like I'm saying this and hopefully people listening they're like, oh yeah, I remember, when I got started, I did something like
Of
that too.
course. I think, and having talked to a lot of the guys in our space now, like Justin and Josie and Heber and Mars, and like we all went through stages at first where it was a lot of DIY and a lot of like fake it until you make it and like managing on the spot, and and that's how you learn the best. Like I also learn very well under pressure and with stuff like thrown at me like this. So 100%. I love hearing all of that. Um, so okay, so can you tell me, other than like the creative part of thing where you discovered all that stuff and everything, like how was just arriving at the CrossFit Games for the first time like this? Like, were you a bit starstruck, or were you already a fan of the fittest movie back then, or
100%. I mean, when I got there, everything felt kind of like a dream.
yeah?
I always say it's the best week of my life because I think 2 days before going to a CrossFit Games was I don't know if you've seen the video of me playing with Blink 182 on stage.
I saw pictures on your story. We have to talk about that later.
Yeah, yeah. That was like 2 days before I went to a CrossFit Games. So when I got back home, I was like, "What's
Mhm.
happened with my life?" Like it's a crazy thing. But yeah, I remember being completely starstruck. Like I remember the first time I saw Rich. We saw him after event was done. We were walking on Madison, just like that one road downtown, and he was in one of the corners. And Ben Siwolski always reminds me of this. He's like, dude, your eyes. I've never seen somebody like open his eyes the way you did, and you were completely starstruck that Rich Froning was there. We talked to him for a little bit. It was a really cool experience, and I'm sure we'll get to this point, but it was a really it was a cool moment when I started working with him personally and
Yes, I want to get to
remembering,
that.
because you kind of forget, right? Like at this point, like I'm starting to remember everything 2019. I will see athletes and I'll be like, oh my god, that's the coolest thing. I'll get like nervous in front of them, and those are cool feelings that you start to lose,
Yeah.
right? Like now we're so involved with every athlete. Like I get to work personally with a ton of them,
Hmm.
with Rich, with Matt Fraser, and you kind of forget who they were as an athlete and who or that feeling you got whenever you saw them compete, because now
Hmm.
you know them as people.
Yeah,
And that kind of
exactly.
is also cool because you get to know people, the real Rich Froning, the real Matt Fraser, the real Catherine, and
Hmm.
you get to know like, oh, these are like, sometimes they don't even realize how big they are because they're just normal people that live their life,
Yeah.
and they have their goals in mind, and they just go and get it done. And then kind of like the outside is louder
Yeah.
than their own head. Like you talk to Matt, and it's almost like I guess he knows how big he is, but I don't think he realizes how influential he
Yeah.
was to a lot of people, just because he's so focused on his goals and so centered on
Of course.
everything was about training, and now it's about his family, his business.
Yeah.
He's kind of like the outside is a lot bigger than he thinks it is.
Yeah, and
I
I mean, I know you might, you always kind of like laugh at that when I say it, and because you might also be very focused on your things and everything, but at your own level, you're also incredibly influential in my career. And when I tell you like you're one of the guys I look up to and that made me want to do all this and this and that, I'm saying it for real. And so the thing is, now I've got to know you as a human, as a person, and we got to become friends a little bit through our work and everything. But I'm not starstruck or anything or fangirling or whatever, but I'm still very admirative of your work. And same thing with BC or Josie or the guys that I started, like even Mars and Hebert, who now I've had on the podcast that I've met several times. They know who I am and everything. I'm not their best friend, far from it. But even still now, when we were in Scotland and at the finish, like at the press ceremony, I saw like Heber pulling the camera out and starting vlogging. I'm like, oh shit, he's vlogging one of the Buttery Bros show like right now, like and even though I don't need to like take a picture or get an autograph, like I think it's pretty cool to even still be inspired by the people you're hanging out with.
Absolutely, and again, it means a lot that you say something like that. It's something that I still remember the people that I looked up to when I got started, and something that I remember clearly is the people that were that supported me and that tried to help me in some way or another. One, like when I had a question, when I sent a DM, and the people that answered back, and there's still a few in the industry, and those are the people that I remember as being like one of those like influential creators
Yeah.
that helped me a ton moving forward. And that's something like I don't forget. It's same thing with people in town that have nothing to do with photography or videography. It was
Mhm.
just people from the gym, for example, friends
Yeah.
that since day one they were like, hey, you can do this, like
Yeah.
if that's your dream, like go for it.
Yeah.
Because there was also moments that people thought I was going crazy, like you have a master's degree and you're trying to create like a agency or be a photographer, like what's going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the day, it's about the effort that you put in. And but going back to what you said about being starstruck, like I mean, same thing. I've worked with Heber and Mars. I've done Buttery Bros episodes with them, and we're good friends. And I still tell them every once in a while, like, hey, just letting you guys know, like, one of the reasons why I'm here is because of you guys.
Yeah.
Like, I watched that documentary that it wouldn't have happened without you guys being involved, and you guys directed it, produced, edited everything.
Yeah.
So technically, like you don't know how life would evolve, obviously, but technically without them, I wouldn't be here. So it's one of those things, right?
Yeah, 100%. I also have a similar story that I've told many times, but yeah, same. I started CrossFit, started watching The Fittest on Earth, saw Mars running next to Matt Fraser with the camera, and I was like, holy shit, that's what I want to do. And I still tell them to this day, and I will do, Carlos, even in 20 years when we're fucking old, filming the 24th CrossFit Games. I still tell you, hey man, I loved your your podcast. But I think it's cool that now we get to work with these people as well and together.
Yeah, 100%. They definitely open a path to every other creator, because I feel like they push the envelope so far.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if that was like, from what I understand, I don't think that it was kind of like the plan from the company to create all these documentaries. I think it was more like an initiative that Heber and all of those guys like, hey, why don't we do this? It all started as an initiative of them creating something bigger than just YouTube videos. And
Yeah.
I mean, it got to be. I was talking to him a few weeks ago, and he told me that I think it was Resurgence or Redeem and Dominant. It was the number one movie in the world on iTunes, with all the other, like, we're not talking about only sports.
Yeah.
It got to be the number one movie in all
Yeah.
categories.
Yeah,
So
I remember talking about them about how these documentaries came to life, and at first it was just like CrossFit Media asking them to do some little bits on YouTube, and then them offering the idea of like, why don't we just like make it a big thing and not just little interviews here and there. And then it started with the Froning documentary and everything. So but yeah, that's awesome. So now you went to your first CrossFit game 2019 for that brand. At the time, were you still with your agency on the side? Like, what was the transition into like full time for CrossFit Media? Well, not CrossFit Media, but like media in the space of CrossFit.
yeah, so yeah, I was still doing all that. Shortly after that, I started getting more involved in weddings. I also volunteer for a competition called Beach Pro, which is the shirt I'm using right now. And yeah, just kind of from there started growing my wedding business. I believe the year after that, I shot over 15 weddings.
Holy
So I
sh!
was heavily involved in weddings. 2020, 2021, until, so just to condense the story a little bit,
Yeah.
2020 COVID hits, right? And then everybody's trying to figure out what to do. I got really into getting better at what I do, especially in videography.
Hmm.
So in 2020 is when I really dived into learning how to be a better videographer.
Hmm.
So I watch all the Peter Schiff's videos. And Peter, is that his name?
Peter
Schiff?
McKinnon.
No, no, no.
Danielle
Peter is
Schiffer.
Daniel Schaefer. Yeah, Peter
Yeah.
Schiff is the financial guy.
Yeah.
Daniel Schaefer, and of course Peter McKinnon and all those guys,
Ryan
and
Angle.
Ryan Angle,
Yeah.
and Potato Jet, and all those guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I love all
The
their
Final
stuff.
Cut people, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Final Cut. So yeah, I started learning a ton from them. I started shooting on my free time. I will go with like friends to the park, and I will shoot them, try to make a video, make everything more cinematic. I started getting really technical when it comes to like learning how to shoot, because I was pretty much kind of like, as I said, like faking it, right? Like probably half of my settings were in auto.
Yeah.
In 2020, I was like, no, if you want to be good, you have to be a technical shooter. You have to know how to use your camera.
Hmm.
You have to know how to operate it ins and out. I got really into that. Obviously, a lot of free time in COVID, and I got better quickly. I will say 2 months of me just like being obsessed into learning.
Yeah.
I got better really quick. I mean,
That's
it was a lot
awesome.
of time involved, but it definitely. I would say that's all you need. You need YouTube University, and and you being motivated to learn and create and put yourself in uncomfortable situations. You don't need a film school degree or
Yeah.
any sort of like, yeah.
Yeah. I
You can find online
I went to
everything.
film school because after high school, that was like the most traditional thing that I thought was like the best to learn. But it was film school was more to work in the film industry. So I still learned a lot about sound design. We learned about editing on Premiere, but and script writing and lighting and intentions and all that stuff. But most of the stuff that I know now, I learned by myself. So
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. Definitely self-taught and asking people questions. Like that's what I did a ton. That's why when people send me DMs now, like sometimes it gets a lot of people asking questions, stuff like that. But I try to, um, as much as I can, I try to answer and give back
Yeah,
kind of what I received when I got started. I had a ton of people helping me
yeah. And you've got
along.
that subscription thing now as well, right?
Yeah, I haven't been super active lately on it, but there's like if you subscribe to it, there's still like past videos and tutorials,
Yeah,
which is a lot of the things that I've learned over the past years. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a cool process to go from somebody that asks questions to now people like get to see you and be like, hey, like I have
yeah.
questions, and sometimes you kind of like you can't forget of like, hey, a few years ago I was that person,
Yes.
right? And me asking a question was scary.
Yeah,
Like it's not easy to just go on the DMs and ask a question,
yeah.
right? So I try to remember that and
And
always,
even
if somebody has a question.
even us now, even though we know how to edit and do all these things, we ask each other questions. Like
Oh, all the time.
I'm just learning how to shoot S-Log. Because I've always shot Cinetone. And I'm just learning S-Log like slowly. And at Rogue, I was like, oh, I had like a lot of clients to shoot for, and I was like, am I gonna shoot S-Log? I don't control it perfectly yet, so I'm like, oh, so no, I shot Cinetone, and I was like, okay, I'll do how I know it. But now
Yeah.
I have a small competition this weekend in Amsterdam. I'm gonna try to shoot S-Log to see if I can like make it work and everything. And you also sometimes ask me some questions about. So I think even when you're set and good, like it's you can always learn from people.
Dude, I'm learning every day.
Yeah,
Like maybe
exactly.
even more than in the past. It just kind of there's always something new to learn. Even if you feel like you have everything figured out, like there's always new skills, new
Yeah,
new now we have new softwares that we're learning how to use to like improve our work,
yeah,
improve the quality. So and I always feel like it's important to keep up with the trends.
hmm,
Like everybody that was like, oh, I'm not gonna shoot vertically because I shoot horizontally, like you start falling behind. Same
yeah,
thing with videos. Like, oh, like we want reels. Oh no, I'm a cinematographer, I don't shoot reels.
yeah,
You're falling behind, right? Like, yeah, technically, like we will want things to be the traditional way sometimes,
yeah,
but hey, if a business needs reels and they need it shot in a different format, like
yeah,
it's gotta adapt. If not, you're gonna fall behind.
yeah.
And I see that a lot in that industry. It's not pointing fingers at anybody necessarily, but there's a lot of photographers that say like, hey, I don't edit my photos. My photos gotta look Getty type of style. I only shoot horizontal. That's the way I've been doing it for 25 years as a professional photographer. And then really nobody wants to hire them, and it's not because anything specific or than like the style is just falling behind.
Yeah, yeah, hundred
Like
percent.
I see now the industry being a lot more creative with the angles, with the colors, the a different style, something that like defines a brand, right? Like
Yeah,
you see like HOPO has a different brand compared to Proven and stuff like that. They all have like
yeah,
their style. You just gotta adapt to what the client needs, right? If
yeah,
not, you're just gonna keep falling behind.
yeah. I kept seeing that masking thing with the letters appearing on an object or like those buildings moving that like BC started doing a lot, and then I was like, oh, that seems so laborious masking and keyframing. Do I want to fuck it? And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. And I just spent like 2 hours looking at tutorials on how to do it. And I was like, okay. And then it's not that bad. I can do it now. The letters appear.
Yeah,
So it's
that's the way to do it. Just learn it and then
100%.
learn new skills every time.
So we didn't get into that like yet, but so when did you? So you still shot a lot of weddings, and then you went full time 2020, 2021.
So I've been full time with social media slash photography since 2018
Okay, okay,
when
sorry.
but it was mostly the social media agency that I had.
Yeah,
I grew it to a point that I was like, okay, like this, I could keep doing this, but every year my passion for content creation became more and more, I don't know,
present.
fulfilling than just being, like searching for clients and talking to clients, stuff like that, to like run a social media. So I was gonna say in 2021, it's when I got my first like big-ish opportunity to shoot like a bigger brand, and it was when I got hired by CrossFit Mayhem to shoot the CrossFit Games.
Okay, cool.
That was in 2021. So at that point, I was, as I said, in 2020, I got a lot better, and I was feeling pretty confident with my work. And then some connections happened, and I got linked up with Mayhem. They needed a photographer, and I'm like, let's do it. Like, I'll deal with everything myself. So there was, I think, 5 video guys, 5 or 4.
Hmm.
I think at that point it was 4, and me as a photographer only.
Yeah.
And something that I've always said that it's kind of, I wouldn't call a superpower or anything like that, but it's something that I feel like it gives me an edge, is that I'm very confident about my work.
Hmm.
I like what I do, and I know I can crush it. Like, I don't get nervous really before events. I get excited. If anything, I get nervous, or not nervous, like a little anxious, because my dogs are gonna be here with somebody else for a week that I'm out of town.
I
But when
just
it
saw your
comes to,
story.
yeah, when it comes to my work, I'm really confident about it. So
That's
I
awesome.
went to the 2021 CrossFit Games, and I was like, I know I can,
Do
if I
this.
work the way I work, like put the effort that I need to, if I have to pull all-nighters to submit all the photos, but I'm gonna provide something that they're gonna be like, oh shit, like this is the man for this, right?
Yeah.
So went to the 2021 games. I took some of my favorite photos I've taken to date, and
Yeah.
I think I did a great job. One of my friends sent me a message that I mention all the time. He sent me, it's something along the lines of like, hey, it only takes one opportunity to make or break your career, and I feel like this one's the one for you. Like, full send. It's that time to change your career.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the moment from the 2021 CrossFit Games, like it's been consistent going up. So that's definitely
Snowball.
yeah, that's definitely the number one, like, I don't know,
It's the first stone.
the first event that kind of made me realize like I belong in the industry.
Hmm.
I can do these things, and I can do it at the highest level. And then
Yeah.
from there, again, learning new skills, I started getting more into videography.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was mostly photography jobs. And the reason why I'm mentioning 2021 the CrossFit Games,
Yeah.
because right after that, I already had a few weddings lined up for 2022.
Hmm.
You book weddings like a year in advance,
Yeah.
and that's when some of my weddings started being on top of like events I wanted to do. One of the regionals was, I had a wedding, stuff like that, and that's when I decided like, hey, if I want to be in this industry, I can do weddings as well,
Yeah.
just because I'm gonna miss shoots that I really want to be a part of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And that's what I
So I
meant
stopped.
earlier when I asked, like, when did you go full time in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will say 2022 is when I shot my last few weddings, because I already had commitments.
Yeah.
Um,
But must have been great to save money because it's good money, right?
it is good
Weddings.
money, and I always say I could be making a ton, probably more money doing weddings. I mean, I was at a point that I was charging $7,000 for a wedding, which is a day. You can pile up 2 or 3 a weekend. We're talking about like $20,000 in
I
3 days
know.
of work.
Yeah.
So I mean, at one point you're like, yeah, I could be making good amount of money, but if it's something that doesn't, I never felt like a passion about shooting weddings. And
Yeah.
every time I would like drive to a wedding, I'll be kind of like already kind of anxious and kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to go through this.
Yeah.
So it never fulfilled me
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. It makes
And I will
sense.
shoot a CrossFit event, make, I don't know, 25% of what I'll make in a wedding, and I'll leave the event. I'm like, I love this. I love the community. I love the people around me.
Mhm.
I love the people I get to hang out. Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, like same. I've got a friend here in the Netherlands. He shoots corporate stuff, and he shoots for like very big like car companies, cleaning products, some like shops, and he makes a lot of money, but he's not really specific in anything, and he's like kind of like going day by day, and it's more of a job than anything else, right? To pay the rent. Whereas me, like I thought to myself, like, do I want to shoot these things a little bit? And I was like, no, I'll just go all in and try to become one of the best at shooting that. And then just like you now, like I couldn't see myself shooting anything outside sports, outside CrossFit, yes, but not outside sports because it's just the
Yeah.
thrills, man. Um,
And I still do a few things here and there outside of the sports industry, but it's mostly like friends and businesses I've had a previous relationship with, real estate and stuff like that.
yeah,
But most of my work is
yeah,
now in sports, which looking back, it's kind of crazy because I always thought it will be impossible just to be in one industry
yeah, crazy,
like
right?
this.
And so then after that 2021 games, what led to? I want to learn more about your relationship with Tier and HWPO. What led to that?
So 2021, it was mostly all mayhem stuff I shot with them. Not until 2022, I still committed. So right now it's 2024. Okay, so long story short, I shot 2021, 2022, and 2023 CrossFit Games with Mayhem.
Okay.
But back in 2022, I got a call from the owners of the Madrid Championship, and or I guess the person from Loud and Live, which is
Yes,
an
loud and live, right?
organization,
Yeah.
and the guy that I think his name is Alfonso
Yeah, I think so.
from Madrid, yeah. And he called me. He's like, "Hey, Dylan, the president of Loud and Live or vice president, recommended you to do some work with us." And I'm not sure what's happening. He's like, Matt Fraser, HOPO, is sponsoring our event. They're doing all the programming, and we want to record the demo videos or like the workout videos at his house.
Hmm.
Can we fly you there? Let us know how much we owe you. You record the videos, you edit them. I'm like, sure, that's great. Um, and at that point, I was still working with Mayhem closely, like all the events, and so I was like, hopefully it's
Yeah.
not terrible. Lucky for me, I was really good friends with Eric Castaños,
Yeah.
which it was their main guy, and at that point, Alex Strobo was working with them, and I was friends with him as well.
Hmm.
So it was it was a clean, like I'm gonna go there, and they were like happy
Yeah.
to receive me. It wasn't like, oh, who's this unknown guy going there?
Yeah.
So I remember I get to Vermont, and Sammy picks me up with Alex, and I'm like, hey, Sammy,
Hmm.
we met a few, and she's like, yeah, I remember in Miami we met. I'm like, oh, she remembers, cool.
Yeah.
And then on the drive back, she's telling me she listened to my episode with Eric, and then
Yeah.
she listened to another one. I'm like, oh, cool. Like get to Matt's house, and he's there in the kitchen. He's like, hey, how you doing? Good to meet you. It was everything super chill.
Yeah.
Shot everything, and it went great. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, but I didn't think much of that.
Yeah.
A few months go by, and Eric calls me. He's like, hey, some things are changing at HOPO, and they're growing quickly. O'Keefe, at that point, he was like just the new CEO, because before he was with Loud and Live.
Hmm.
So it was pretty new, O'Keefe being the CEO of HOPO, and things were starting to grow quickly.
Yeah.
He's like, we have a ton of projects coming up, and we want to, have you a little more involved. I'm like, sure, like that sounds great. I just want to make sure my relationship with Mayhem you know, um, doesn't get messed
Yeah.
up.
Of course.
So quickly, I talked to Scott. I'm like, hey, the people from HOPO want to get me involved in some things. And Scott Van der Sully, which is the media director of Mayhem,
Yeah.
since day one, he's like, listen, you're a freelancer. This is your job. This is how you make your money.
Yeah.
Like, by all means, like if you get good opportunities with HOPO, like I completely support it. I accept it, and we're not gonna change who we are because of that.
That's awesome.
So after that, I got another opportunity, shot the same type of videos for that I did with Madrid,
Hmm.
but for Dubai.
Okay.
So I went to Matt's house again. We shot, and from there, more and more projects started piling up. We shot all the lift package that we did with Amy Everett, and from there, more and more. But I was still in a relationship, work relationship with Mayhem.
Yeah.
So I was trying to be strategic of like, hey, not be how can I be respectful, but I still keep both of my relationships without them being like clashing together. You
A
know what
hundred
I mean?
percent. Yeah.
And at that point, people are like how like I don't get it. So you do stuff with HOPO and with
Yes.
Mayhem,
I was thinking that
and
myself.
yeah. So it was definitely like a weird like you
Transition.
know I I would say it wasn't weird for me or for the clients. It was just weird for everybody else
Yeah.
because Mayhem always supported what I did with HOPO, and HOPO always supported what I did with Mayhem.
Yeah.
I never heard anybody like talking shit about the other company. Like they were all like, "Oh, cool, sweet,
Yeah.
you're going." Like I'm like, "Hey, I already have a commitment to shoot the cross games with Mayhem." Sweet, like
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
all friends, right? And with Tier, it was in 2022. Uh, it was before Tier was brand new in the industry. They were a swimming brand,
Yeah.
and they launched the first time in 22 as in CrossFit. They just had sunglasses. That's all they did. They didn't have shoes. They had some like normal shirts, but I don't even know if they sold the shirts.
Okay.
Maybe they did, but it was just sunglasses, and they hired me for the Granny Games.
Okay.
Because do you know Richard Bloomer?
Nah. I think he rings a bell. I'm not sure. I'm not great with
Richard
names.
Bloomer, he's been working with CrossFit for maybe 3 to 4 years as a freelancer.
I think I follow
He's
him.
great. I mean, he's one of my favorite guys. One of those guys that I look up to.
Yeah.
And he did some work with Tier because he's friends with Travis Mayer, and they
Yes.
asked him, "Hey,
Sorry, I
can you
just
come?"
looked him up. I know
Yeah,
exactly who it is. Sorry.
yeah. And they asked him, "Hey, we want to hire you for Granite Games."
Hmm.
And he's like, "Sorry, I already have a commitment with CrossFit, but I can recommend people." And he recommended me,
Okay.
and that's how my relationship with Tier started. I did the Granite Games in 2022,
Yeah.
and it was one of those. Sorry, my dog's barking. I don't know if
All
you can
good.
hear it. Yeah,
I'm a
it
dog
was one
person,
of
so I
those.
get it.
Yeah, it was one of those moments that it's like, hey, I know this can change my career because it's the first time that I get like a bigger gig in videography. It's something I want to dive more into. So I went 120%.
Yeah.
I think I slept 3 hours, 2 hours every night,
Yeah.
just editing, and that was kind of one weekend that on the job I discovered I could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that sometimes it takes that one job opportunity to either you meeting Matt and then something create like popping up from it and then you doing one gig for tier and then that's how you make relationships with brand. I think it's all about relationships and I've talked about it with other creators on the show. Um, and
100%. But that week really, looking back, it really changed my career because I knew I could make, a hype reel, but I didn't know I could. How can I say this without sounding like cocky?
go ahead, man.
Which is not cocky. What I'm trying to say is that I knew I could make a hype reel, but I didn't know that the same night I could produce something that will be like really proud of.
Yeah.
Like the day after, or I guess the day after the competition, I was looking at all the work that I did the week during the week, and I was like, I was almost impressed by my own work. Like I wasn't expecting it to be that good.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Maybe if I look at it right now, I'll be kind of like, nah, it wasn't that good. But at that time, I loved it,
Yeah.
and I'm super proud of it, and it started a good relationship with Tier. But back to what you said, which is number one thing in this industry in my mind. I mean, I'm realistic. I know there's many people that can do what I do, and there's many people that can do what I do even better, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we're gonna find that everywhere, even the best in the industry. There's people that are gonna be as good as that person or better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But something that I've noticed is that brands buy into people and not into product as much.
Yes. 100%.
So
Like you can make the best content possible if the person you're in a relationship with or in contact with that brand doesn't feel a connection with you as a person as well, it might not, you might not work for them a second time. It's I think it's a healthy mix of both.
100%, and um, yeah, it's something that it's almost hard to explain sometimes because in reality, like the things that we do, we're just checking boxes, right? Like if a company needs a reel that, it's 15 seconds, they only need a reel that's 15 seconds. We're just checking boxes, but we make it more appealing with like all the things that we do, all the effects. But in reality, it's going to create probably the same, I don't know, the same engagement and the same effect for for the company
Yeah.
if somebody like more of a beginner will do it, because that's just how the algorithms work. Like sometimes the video does well, sometimes it doesn't, whatever. So we're checking boxes.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like the reason why they're hiring us is because of who we are, our communication with them,
Yeah.
how they feel working with us. If their values align with our values, they know that we're going to be on time,
Yeah.
that they don't have to be micromanaging us, that we're going to submit everything before the deadline. That's what like brands care. Like
Yeah. 100%.
they hire you to do something. Hey, can you make 20 videos by December 21st? Sure, I'll do it. You get it all done,
Yeah.
finish it on time, communication as well. They're gonna be happy. Like you
Yeah.
missed a week, you missed the deadline, they're probably not gonna hire you again.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, I don't know how to, something happened, some excuse. Like at the end of the day, it's business.
Yeah.
They don't care. You're late. It's sorry. Like you don't
100%.
work with us anymore. And I deal with that myself now that I manage teams for competitions now.
Yeah.
And I tell them every time the week before we jump in a call, and I tell all my people. I mean, I deal with teams up to like 15 creators,
Hmm.
and I tell them all the time, like, hey, if you're here and this team is for a reason. It's because I like your job, I like your work, I like the way you are as a person, I like the I like your art, and but at the same time, even if you're my best friend, if you don't get the job done, you're not coming back. And I'm gonna be realistic. Like I'm here to work, and
Yeah.
it's a business, so I want to separate friendship from work.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if you need help with anything, I'm always gonna be your friend. But this weekend, I we need to, have we need to understand what are the roles, because I've
Mm.
run through issues in the past that people are like, oh, Carlos is my friend, like we're best friends, and then they don't get the job done, and then
Yeah.
it's that awkward conversation of like, hey, so at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It can be, it can be my best friend. If he doesn't get the job done, or
Yeah.
he makes a mistake that I tell him like, hey, this is like something you shouldn't do, and then
Yeah.
he does it just because he didn't listen, that just tells me enough, and I'm not gonna hire you again.
100%. And it's not just in videography or CrossFit or whatever. Like it's a job. You come here, you do the tasks that you
Correct.
need to do, and it can get lost in translation with like, yeah, the friendships we make and the fact that it's CrossFit and not like fucking the NFL or whatever. And so like some stuff can get lost, but a job is a job. You come in, you come on time, you deliver what you need to deliver. And yeah, and then it's also, I was going to say earlier, it's also about, even though you're asking for something specific, it's about also sometimes going a little bit the extra mile. Like I'll always add in some pictures. I'll always add in a few reels for the clients. Like, hey, I just give you this or that, and then sometimes, I'll even lower the invoice from a little bit because I feel like this wasn't exactly how I wanted to deliver and everything. Like, and that's what makes a huge difference. So 100%.
A lot of people would be against that, what you said. I'm with you on
Yeah,
that. Like I've always been somebody that over delivers a little bit,
yeah,
and I do things that people are not expecting me to do, just to like give them that impression, or me telling them without telling them like, hey, I'm willing to do more. I'm willing to go above and beyond to make the client happy.
yeah,
And I've always been like that. I remember one time I heard one of those motivational speeches that they're talking about 5 more reps. Like whenever you think you're done,
yeah,
just do 5 more extra steps. Just over deliver a little bit for the client, and they, even though like sometimes they don't like notice it like, directly, but subconsciously they're gonna know like, oh, he went above and beyond to make sure we're happy with the product.
yeah.
That's always important.
Recently, I did something I haven't seen a lot of creators do, so it was a bit like ballsy, not ballsy, but I haven't seen it before. And I went to previous clients and I asked them for reviews, just like a Google review for a restaurant or anything. And so I've created a highlight with reviews from clients, and I didn't ask them to tell anything specific. I asked them like, "Hey, I just wanted to know what you thought about my services, about delivery, about all of this. You can say whatever you want. You can be anonymous or not, whatever." And then I was so surprised by all the things that they were saying, and not to fucking kiss my own ass or whatever, but that's when you see that all the things that you do don't go unnoticed, and that they appreciate you for it, whether it's like being on time, delivering on time, going the extra mile, all these little things that, I think they notice. So
For
100%.
sure.
I just want to know something. It's something I like to ask about to creators. It's your creative process. So I asked that a little bit to Bennett, especially about the documentary that he did on Guy. Can you tell me a little bit more about your process when it comes to videography? Because I'm just curious about different creators, like the approach that people can have on a project. I know it's different for each project, but let's just say, for example, the clients that you had for Rogue. Um, like in video, do you think, what I mean by process is, do you have a music in mind beforehand or after when you start editing? Is it first the structure? Like, I just want to know more about, pick your brain about that.
Yeah. So, something I've learned in the past is that when it comes to projects that, again, this, I don't know if this will resonate with people, but what I try to do is that I always try to be proactive and kind of, obviously, like good communication with client is number one thing
Hmm.
before attacking a project. But for example, like tier, if we're talking about Rogue, right?
Hmm.
They came to me with like, hey, we want to create more stories, like,
Yeah.
and it's something like we can talk about it with the documentary I'm making about the tier SoCal.
Yeah.
I feel like I've already done what I wanted to do in CrossFit. Like I'm happy with the photos, the reels, whatever, but I feel like it's not fulfilling me as much as before. Like just going to an event and just shooting some reels, like it's cool, but it's, I want to try new things, right? And now I'm dealing to, now that I'm like diving more into this like storytelling world of like making documentaries, directing them, shooting them stuff. It's something that's always in the back of my mind. Like, hey, how can I make stories out of this? Like the industry needs more stories. We want to know more about who the athletes are. Like as we were talking earlier, like it's cool to get to know Matt and Rich as the people who they are instead of like the athlete. Like
Yeah.
we know Matt is a complete savage on the competition floor. Like we're never gonna find somebody that had the passion that he had for winning, the drive and motivation. But like everybody knows that. Like,
Yeah.
at this point, everybody knows that he's a savage. He's the best, right? But like it's just, it will be so cool to make a documentary that kind of surrounds his about his thoughts and like how his life completely changed when his daughter was born and all that. It just, you get to know more the person as who they are,
Yeah.
and that's something that now we're trying to do with Tier. It's like, how can we make stories out of this? And all these stories kind of, it can happen in the last second, right? Like we just have to follow it closely. Like we knew that it was going to be Brent Fikowski's last competition, right?
Hmm.
So let's keep an eye on Brent. Let's get some interviews of Brent just in case there's a cool story that forms into this. So that was the plan before. We're like, hey, let's pick these athletes. Let's try to create a story behind these athletes.
Hmm.
And at first they were like, hey, let's do this length and stuff. And that's when I came in into when I'm telling you, like, I'll always like to be proactive.
Hmm.
I feel like clients have a good idea of like what they need, but at the end of the day, we're the creators, right? Like we're the artists. We have a different perspective on things, and we probably know more about like what people like
Yeah.
compared to like the owners of brands, because they're more invested into growing their company, not into, hey, what does the audience need
Yeah.
for this to be captivating. And that's when I was like, hey, I think there's a really cool opportunity here to make something special about brand.
Yeah.
We're talking about somebody that's been in the sport for 12 years, podium a few times, like somebody that's like changed the sport. Like he was the first one to podium, being over 6 feet tall, stuff like that, like
One of the goats.
somebody that's had a great career. So why don't we make a mini documentary on him?
Yeah.
They're like, sure, we like your idea, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like just me being proactive and me being like putting an initiative on doing something and them trusting me. And that's something I really like about Tears, that they don't really micromanage me much,
Hmm.
and they trust me a lot on like my like what I visualize for projects and stuff
Yeah,
like
your
that.
creative judgment.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the owner tells me is like, hey, if I'm hiring you, it's because I trust your eye, right? Like I trust your work. I'm not gonna be telling you, hey, do this, change that. Of course, there's things that's like, hey, can we take that part out? It doesn't really match the brand.
Yeah.
Sure, like absolutely. So that's one of the reasons I really enjoy working with them.
Yeah.
So we came into Rogue Invitation with the idea of like, hey, let's make some about brand
Yeah.
and see what it comes out of it. So pre-production is a lot of like me calling the people who are involved, like, hey, let's do this and that, let's plan a schedule, like it's gonna be a busy weekend, contacting the athlete in advance, hey Brent, we're gonna do a mini documentary on you, like are you available Thursday midday to shoot some interviews,
Yeah.
go ahead and get interviews from our people, stuff like that, and just make sure we have everything planned in advance.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when it comes to CrossFit competitions, things evolve while it's happening. Like there could have been a really cool story about an RT athlete, like I don't know, Jason Hopper, if he would have won the event or something like that.
Yeah.
Which there's still a cool story of him finishing third because he's been, he had a few like rough, like he had a rough year one point, and
Yeah.
before that he won a big competition, so everybody was thinking he was going to be the next fittest, the best person that to be there,
Yeah.
and had a rough year. So I mean, there's still a cool story of him finishing third and kind of breaking through that barrier, right?
Yeah.
So that's something we keep in mind. Like, hey, think stories are happening in the middle of the competition. Let's keep track of everything
Mhm.
and just make sure we get everything recorded and the things that we need.
Yeah. Awesome.
I don't know if that was like
No, that's a little bit
process
what
that
I
you went.
meant, but it's also, yeah, like I love when like things derive from my initial question as well. So it's just that's what it's about. So yeah, I just sometimes like to get in ahead of people because I know that a lot of creators have different ways of creating, and I know a lot of creators, and there's nothing wrong with that, kind of gatekeep how they work and all that stuff. I'm a bit of both, like, but I love sharing, and I love talking about creating with different creators, and I know you're a person that doesn't mind sharing about your creative process and how you approach like making these things, so that's why I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah, and also, I mean, yeah, as you said, like everybody's so different. I always make sure I hit all my check marks, like all the things that I need to do. But at the same time, I do a lot of it by feeling like, hey,
Yeah.
if this happening, let's do this. Hey, how about we change the story to more of this? Like
Yeah.
it just kind of depends. It's also it's a sport that a lot of things happen quickly,
Yeah.
so things can change right away. But yeah, I mean, like people sometimes take for granted like the importance of pre-production and making sure you're going to shoot fully prepared of like, hey, these are the things that I want, these are the things that we can expect. And sometimes it's also hard for us because being such a saturated market in a sport that's not as big,
Yeah.
it's also kind of hard for us to find the funding that we need
Yeah.
to make something that we want to make, right? Like
Yeah.
for example, a documentary. Like if you want a documentary that's gonna be produced to a point that you're gonna be like, yep, that's exactly what I need. I mean, you're gonna need a big team. You're gonna need 4 to 6 people shooting the event. Then you're gonna need, a production assistant, crib, somebody to help you with lights, renting all the equipment, having, assistants here and there, an editor, somebody to fund the whole project, distributors. Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's not an industry that we can just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna reach out to this person. It's gonna we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
So like I like what you say. I'm probably gonna say it wrong, but you make lemonade out of what? Can you tell me your tagline again?
Yeah, it's not mine, it's a common expression. When life gives you
Yeah,
lemon, you make lemonade.
Correct, and that's what we do. That's what we do. We really sometimes we don't have the necessary resources to make something specifically that we would hope to make, but that's kind of how the industry works.
Yeah,
With what we have,
exactly.
we make the art. You know.
Yeah, that's it started with that podcast, like on your content lab show when I came on after semifinals in Berlin, and you were asking me like, how was it to shoot from the seats when everybody else was in the media pit? And I was like, yeah, just make lemonade, you know. And I know it sounds like a silly, fun phrase or whatever. And sometimes you're asking me like, ah, Mary, so you're gonna make your lemonade with a little bit of a smile. I'm like, yeah, I am, because we always have to deal with, like, it can be bad access, or it can be issues on the spot with like where we're located, or issues with an athlete, like he lost an event, so he's not ready to do the interview, he's in a mood or whatever. Like, we have to make do with what we have, and that's why I created this like lemonade thing, and that's why I keep using it, because I think it really talks about like
Yeah,
what we
it
have to.
resonates with everybody in the industry for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So
And to
I
talk about brand, not to
Yeah, no, go ahead,
you know,
continue.
I was gonna plug it in real quick. So
100%.
we haven't announced any, like nobody knows about this, so your show is gonna be the first one. I don't even know when the show is gonna be released, but today's November 20th,
Yeah.
and November. So today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
November 22nd, we're gonna release the mini documentary on Brent. So tomorrow we should be posting a little teaser and stuff. And as you said, it's something that I'm really proud of, because we made lemonade, right? Like
Yeah.
we had terrible access. We didn't have access to go like interview people, and we got Brent kind of like on, like the interview was in the lobby. He was like in a rush, and I'm really happy about the final result. So
I can't wait to see
again,
that.
it's a mini documentary, but it really captures that story we wanted to tell about him being kind of like always the underdog
Yeah.
of the industry, somebody that was too tall to be competitive, somebody that failed two times to make the games,
Hmm.
somebody that people never thought, even himself, he never thought he will be able to what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
And there is a part that he says something that really resonated with me. He said when he was 21 years old, when he quit his sport of volleyball, that's the sport he played professionally before, or I guess I don't know if he played professionally, but that was his sport. Whenever he stopped playing,
Yeah.
he never thought there would be something different or something else that would give him the same sort of satisfaction
Yeah.
that volleyball gave him. He thought it was it. That was done. Like he was done with sports. Time to find like a normal job, normal
Yeah.
life, and that's when he found CrossFit. And it really resonated with me, because that's kind of what it happened to me. Like 21 years old, stopped playing college golf. Like,
Yeah.
what's next? I'm never gonna find something that you know uh, makes me passionate about like waking up every day and like being better.
Yeah.
And I feel like the transition to find the sport of CrossFit into photography, into videography, and all that, that's kind of my new path.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that kind of resonates. It's not the same, like I'm
No,
not a
for
professional
sure.
athlete, but
No, no,
it's
no.
similar.
I totally feel you. And I think it's great that now, because before with the Fittest on Earth documentaries, or even now the documentaries that they do with CrossFit Media and everything, they can't focus on every athlete of the top 20, 40 athletes, right? So I think it's amazing that outside of these big Fittest documentaries and everything, you get these brands or these training program and everything that like tell stories about all other athletes that you might not have heard of, just like what Bennett did with Guy and what you did now with Brent, and like telling stories that haven't been heard before. I had no idea Brent was did volleyball before, so it's great. I think
Yeah,
it's freaking awesome, and I hope people are gonna tune in to go watch it, and also can't wait for the tier one.
yeah.
Um,
That one, I'm in the middle. I'm still in the like right after I hang up here. I gotta go back to editing and finishing up. So
yeah.
the plan is to get it done, fully done by December 1st.
Okay.
Send it out for review to the executive producer,
Yeah.
and then once it's fully approved, we're gonna send it out to an audio engineer that we hire, and he's gonna do all the mixing, and
Yeah.
then it will be released by MLK weekend. So that's the weekend before Wodapalooza.
Okay. Awesome. Good to know. Nice. I just booked my
Yeah.
ticket for Miami. Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time because I know you have work to do and everything. I just had some like little rapid fire questions. You don't have
Yep.
to go too deep in each of them. I just want to know more your passion with like music and how did you end up going on stage with freaking Blink 182? That's fucking awesome.
It's one of those crazy like lucky stories. It just it's been my favorite band since I remember, since before I could speak English. I like their music,
Yeah.
and and I don't know. It just not to get too deep into it, but I just got lucky, and I like to say that I manifest things, and it was the right time, right moment, right tour that they brought somebody on stage for like 3 shows, and I was one of the lucky ones that they just picked on stage. They probably saw my eyes being like, I want to be there, and they're
Yeah.
like, yep, this is the guy.
So
But we can get more deep into it. It takes forever.
yeah, I know. I
It's
mean,
a
I don't
long
want to take
story.
too much of your time. It's evening for me as well. So, but hey, we can do.
I'm good with time. I'm just saying, like, people will probably get bored because I get really I get really geeked out with that. But
No,
yeah, at the end of the day, it was pure luck, and probably some sort of like me manifesting it to happen, and it happened.
yeah, that's awesome. And you were saying that you were not nervous much with like your job because you know how good you are. But like when you went on stage there, were you nervous?
So it's the only time in my life. Listen to this. It
I'm
probably sounds
listening.
crazy, but it's the only time in my life that excitement was so big that like being nervous wasn't even in the picture. Like I remember
Hmm.
when the security guard grabbed me and I went on stage. That feeling, it's something I've never felt before, and I don't think at that point maybe there was some nervousness, but it was completely hidden by how excited I was
Yeah.
just to be there.
And
I was
I'm
probably more nervous like right after I was done. I'm like, are people gonna start booing me
yeah, yeah,
or it
yeah.
was
Okay,
dope?
fair enough. And I'm just curious because I see you post a lot about them manifesting a lot and having done that as well. Like, do you think, without even pretension or anything, do you think you're on their radar or are you?
Probably not, honestly. I feel like every industry you have to earn the respect to.
Of course. Of
So
course.
it's like somebody in the music industry being like, hey, I want to make a documentary on Matt Fraser. There's still gonna be a ton of people are gonna be in front of that person. So I personally don't think that I've earned my respect in that industry. It's not an industry I've been a
No,
part
of
of. So
course. No, I
uh,
didn't mean like as a videographer or as them maybe hiring you. Just like, because I see you posting so much of them and then you went on stage with them and I know you
I know,
shot
I see
something
what you're
for,
saying.
are you on their rate? Like,
You know what? I don't think so because there's so many fans all over the world that they're 10 times more like more obsessed than me and all that. But I've always had the idea of like going to Mark, the bass player, and ask him, hey, do you remember the kid that played with you guys in Jacksonville?
yeah.
And because I've heard that he has like really good memory, that's always been something that I've been thinking like I wonder if they remember.
Yeah, right? And then, for all you know, because it's crazy how some people have an amazing memory. Just like when you met Sammy for the first time, she's like, oh, yeah, Carlos. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you might, you never know, but maybe one day you'll meet Tom or whatever, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, you're that guy that one day that fucking, you know.
It's hard to tell too because they play so
I
many
know.
times. It's
Yeah.
like sometimes they forget their own songs. It's
Yeah,
like
fair enough. I'm
like you
always
mentioned one of their old songs and they're like, I've never heard that song. It's like, "Oh, it's your song." Oh, yeah, yeah, I remember.
I'm just to finish on Blink. Like I'm also a big fan. I'm just a very huge pop punk fan in general. Simple Plan, All Time Low, Weezer, like all these guys. I've just grown up with pop punk, and like these guys always surprise me because for example, I really love Simple Plan, but like some of the stuff that they sing now, it's like it really sounds like 17-year-old songs sang by adults, and it's like, it's still fun and everything, but with, for example, I've been listening on repeat One More Time Part Two,
Yeah.
and these guys, like the songs still sound like them from when they were like 20 years ago. like still, and it sounds genuine and relevant, not like
Yeah.
like 50-year-old men trying to do like teenage songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially the newest album. I feel like halfway through their career, they try to, I guess, they try to be more mature, and like their sound completely changed. Everything started being a little more, completely different of what makes them who they are.
Yeah.
And now they're fully embracing like, oh, that's like, that's the sound that made us who we are, and now let's make some lyrics that can resonate more with people than, like, oh, my girlfriend and the
Yeah.
fucking Target and I
Yeah.
broke my toe. It's like, okay.
Yeah, 100%. Like some of this, I love Simple Plan, but some of the stuff is just very. Anyway, I won't go into it.
No,
So
I get it, especially like the Scooby-Doo song and stuff like
yeah,
that. Simple Plan. You're like, okay, whatever.
yeah. I'm just a kid. It's like anyway. I still like them though, but so
Yeah.
just some small rapid fire questions. They're not necessarily meant to be rapid fire, but just you can answer with very simple, quick answers. What's one advice you'd give to a young guy wanting to pursue the same career as you?
The same career as me. Um, I will say don't listen to those voices that tell you you cannot. It's a I mean, right away, I'm gonna tell you it's not easy. It's not an easy industry at all. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people are really good at what they do, but I would say it's nothing that it's nothing impossible to do. As I mentioned a few times, like me being here doing what I do is something that wasn't in the plans.
Hmm.
I I never thought in a million years that I would be a photographer, a videographer, or I'll do this for a living.
Yeah,
It just kind of evolved into that, and it took a lot of time, a lot of learning, a lot of meeting people. So, I mean, my advice will be to my dog is
it's
barking
okay.
again. Sorry. My advice will be to let's give me a second
Yeah.
before I don't want to say anything with the dog barking in the back. Can you make cuts in this?
I'm not gonna make cuts now.
All right,
It's
never
all
mind.
good.
She'll probably stop barking now. Anyways, okay. My advice will be to never take shortcuts. I feel like that's one of the things that when people start in the industry, they're like, "Oh, I want to be like Josie. I want to be like Marius,"
Yeah,
right from the beginning, and it's simply impossible. Like it takes years to get to where we are, right? And that's something that you have to completely embrace and deal with it. That your work's probably gonna be not there for a few years, and it's okay. Like that's what makes you who you are. That's what creates this little like habits and like your artistic eye that's gonna be a little different. Just do what you feel like it's cool. Like there's a few really good quotes that one by Ira Glass that it says something like your art and your eyes there, like your taste is good, you just can't do what you can do now, but the more you practice it, the more reps that you get in, eventually it's going to evolve into that.
yeah,
But your eye and your taste is there.
yeah,
You just gotta make sure you get to that point. So that'll be my advice. Don't take shortcuts. Learn from day one, like how to operate your camera,
yeah,
and never stop dreaming. Like that's number one thing. I've always been a big dreamer. I write things down that I want to do,
yeah,
and there's still things that I haven't accomplished that I want to do, and those are things that I'm still dreaming. Like
yeah,
I've never felt that this is enough for me. I've hit points that I feel fulfilled and I feel proud of what I've done,
hmm,
but there's still more that I want to achieve,
yeah,
and that's something that probably helped me throughout my career.
yeah.
It's that I always want more without being too greedy.
Yeah, and you just answered one of the questions I often asked, which is linked to the name of the podcast. It's like, what is your drive? And you just answered it, so that's perfect. Okay, continuing with like some short question. What's your favorite thing about your job? If you could name one.
Right now, it's learning new cultures, meeting new people, and constantly being challenged to learn and to become better.
Yeah, love that answer. Awesome. What's your favorite thing to shoot right now?
Favorite thing to shoot right now? I don't know if necessarily it's like the shooting, but as we talked earlier, creating a story, telling a story about an athlete or about a person or about a competition event. That's my favorite thing right now. It just gives me this sort of like fulfillment of like, hey, there is more to tell than what people see.
Yeah. Cool. Love that. What are a few songs that you're listening to on repeat these days?
Gosh, it's a lot of Blink 182 now, but so lately, so Old Time Low just released their new albums, like a remaster, or I guess it's a complete remake of some of their hit songs.
Hmm.
There's one song called 6 Feet Under a Star that I've been listening to it a lot.
Okay.
I know the bass player Zach, and I message him like, dude, it's like it's a good album. Like all the songs before were good, but now that they're like remastered and remade with their new sound, it just it hits different. So
Okay.
definitely that.
So you
I've been
just
listening
casually
to
dropped that you know the bass player from All Time Low.
yeah. Well, he's kind of in the CrossFit. He does CrossFit and stuff, and that's how we
Okay.
got linked up. So we've hung out a few times. Funny story. He used one of my shirts for one of the shows in Alabama that I went to. He
No
showed up on
way.
stage. Yeah, he kind of we worked out earlier that day, and then he didn't tell me whenever he jumped on stage he had a Bound Media shirt. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'll send you the video.
Yeah, send me, bro. That's sick. Bro,
Um,
I almost want to make an episode 2 someday with you again so we can talk about all these
yeah.
things.
Um, I don't know the Cure. I like the Cure a lot. More of like old school '80s like tone. I like as I told you earlier, Blink 182.
Yeah.
I have this playlist with Maddie called Vacation. Long story about why it's called Vacation, but it's a playlist that we both are our favorite songs. So it's a whole mix of like she likes a little more of like the emo type of like songs,
Yeah.
and a little more hardcore, and I like more of like a more of more of the relaxed pop punk or
Yeah.
fast like old school punk.
Yeah.
So it's a good mix of like a bunch of things.
Is she more into what you mean like metalcore, like Bring Me the Horizon and While She
Yeah,
Sleeps
she
and
likes that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I guess fair enough. Cool. And then one thing, two last thing, but when you have free time, what is like something your favorite thing to do that allows you to disconnect from your work reality?
Yeah. Lately, a lot of my free time I've been spending it with the people I love.
Hmm.
I feel like that's something that the more I travel is the more I get like, hey, it's like it, I want to be more present on like the things that I do here because I don't have as much time here as I used in the past, like with all the traveling and stuff. So I try to be more present and when Maddie is like, "Hey, let's do this," like I try to never say no. Like if I have time and I know I can make it happen, like I want to create cool memories that in the past I would have been like completely so consumed by work and by, hey, no, I have to stay home. I need to edit this or like watch a YouTube video, learn something new.
Hmm.
I'm trying to see life a little different and really separate life from work.
Hmm.
I lost a lot of friends back in the day because of how like consumed I was by this industry and that's something I want to be a better person with.
Yeah.
I want to be present in my day-to-day life and completely separated from work, spend time with my dogs. I know that if you don't have dogs, it's almost impossible to explain, but I know I don't have too much time with them anymore.
Hmm.
They're both 8 years old, almost 9, and they've been with me through it all, right, since college,
Yeah.
and I've gone through a lot of things, and they've always been there for me, and
Yeah.
that's something I think about it too. I want to spend time with them, with my friends, create new memories, travel a little bit just for not for work, just for fun, and
Yeah.
yeah, enjoy the things in life that I feel like I haven't paid too much attention to it, just because at one point in my life I was too like the horses whenever they get the things
Yeah.
just one.
Tunnel vision.
I forgot, yeah, tunnel vision. I was too tunnel vision into something, and I see that there's a lot more to life than just that.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. And I think having a partner helps you gain that perspective as well. Because I'm single, for example, and I can also get into those tunnel vision things. But then having a partner, like you're not by yourself anymore. you share your life with someone, and so it can help you also like realize these things as well. So and I think I've noticed from, I didn't know you a lot before you were with Maddie, but I still knew you a little bit, and I've noticed that when I see you now at events, I've noticed a little something different in your
Yeah,
eyes.
no, definitely. It's
Yeah.
something that I mean, I noticed too because before Maddie, really like nothing else mattered on the work, and I don't know. It kind of opened a new world for me of like, hey, like this is not it, right? Like there's a lot of things that I can experience in the world and enjoy more time with my friends, and
Yeah.
find different passion projects here and there that doesn't really um, it doesn't really involve like making money. It's more like, hey, let's do this to
Yeah.
just for the love of the art, instead of chasing money.
Yeah, that's one thing I was talking about with a friend that's visiting me from Australia at the moment, and it's like you can have a lot of things happening in your life, being very successful, travel for work, all that stuff. But I think life is meant to be shared with people, whether that's friends or a partner. And personally, I can't wait to someday maybe meet someone with who I can share all these things with, and yeah. So that's awesome. I'm happy for you, man, that you guys met, and yeah, wish you guys the
Thank you,
best.
man.
One last thing, are we gonna see a new Content Lab episode?
I mean, I will say right now, yes. It's something that, dude, I enjoyed so much. Like it's probably one of those things that also, I mentioned like the 2021 CrossFit Games as something that changed my career and stuff like that. That podcast is probably something that changed my career too. I made connections um, through the podcast. I met a ton of people from all over the world reaching out to me saying that they listen to the podcast. And more important than anything, I remember the reason why I made it. It's because I was in that process of being like consumed by always doing the same thing over and over and start feeling too comfortable. And I was trying to find something that would be really uncomfortable for me.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I never really enjoyed talking in front of a camera. English is not my first language, so it's always been kind of like something that I'm a little self conscious about.
Mhm.
Um, but I knew it was going to be a good challenge, something that would get me out of the comfort zone, and it'll be something positive for my career, for my life. And I mean, since the moment I created it, I literally enjoyed every episode. Every episode, I took something out of it. I learned a ton. I learned a ton from different perspectives, different people, and yeah, I just there's something really special about talking to our people who are kind of like minded, and even if they're not like minded, they still
Mhm.
have something to you know they have valuable things that you can take into your life and apply them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean the podcast is probably one of the best decisions I've made. I was terrified at first, but it's something that I'm proud of. And as I've mentioned before, I think that's something that you should be proud of, because I know you're probably in a similar spot than me. English is also not your first language,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you are also a little bit terrified before your first episode, but it was something really really uncomfortable for me that I was able to get better at and then do something positive out of it. So you should be proud
Yeah.
of what you're making right now, like be in front of a camera talking to people, because it's not easy. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm very proud. I was a bit scared when I did my first with Josie. Just because also all the mechanics of it, StreamYard, all that stuff. But
Yeah.
luckily enough, actually, I'm not gonna tell you yet what's the name, but I used to have a YouTube channel.
Oh,
So
really?
there's
That's
some
cool.
old ass, like super embarrassing videos from like 6, 7 years ago. Uh, anyway, so I used to film myself a lot, so that was okay on that end. But like I am
Yeah.
French and Spanish, so it's hard. Maybe we can do the next episode in Spanish.
Yeah.
Anyway, bro, thank you so much for allowing me some of your time to come on the show and have a chat. We've talked for an hour and a half. I think you're the person I've talked to the longest with. I loved picking your brain and getting to know you more, and letting people know you more as well through that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see some future content led episode whenever that will be. I'll be tuning in. And
Thank you, man. That means a lot. Thanks for having me.
yeah, for sure. Are you going to Wodapalooza?
Yes, I'll be there with Tier as
Yeah,
well.
cool, awesome.
But yeah, we have a few really cool things planned for next year. But yeah, if anybody's watching this, make sure you message Marius and tell him how awesome of a job he's doing. Because again, like as I mentioned, it's something not easy. So just I love when people do stuff like this, and I think you deserve a lot of credit for bringing people into this platform. So and that's sometimes things that we don't really we don't get that much feedback from people because everybody's enjoying it. Oh, cool, But
Yeah,
in reality, like you deserve a lot of credit for doing this and bringing people that you're doing. Because I know for a fact that, I mean, you know, or at least I think you're not making money out of this. I didn't make money out of my podcast, so it's all for the love.
yeah,
Sorry, it's all for the love of like other people getting to know our community, our creators, and for people to learn
yeah.
and just to make connections and stuff. So I know there's nothing like an incentive when it comes to money for you to do this. So that's
No,
pretty cool.
there's 25 people on the channel, and like the only people who tune in is are people who are really interested in this. So I make zero, and that's not the point. I just want to chat with my friends and talk about our life in our industry. So thank you so much
Absolutely,
for
man.
coming on. I'm just gonna end the recording now.